Welcome back. We are ready to start our geometry unit. We are going to go over some review today before we get started with our new material. Today's lesson is type of angles. Our essential question is what are the different types of angles and their relationship to one another. So an angle is two rays, a ray having a common endpoint. So that common endpoint is right here called the vertex, and the rays go outwards. This is angle 1 and angle 2. If they have the same measure, they are considered congruent. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. These are your abbreviations for angles. Acute angle is an angle that's less than 90 degrees. So somewhere between 0 and 89 degrees. A small angle is an acute angle. A right angle is exactly 90 degrees. It's often denoted by a box in the corner of that right angle showing you 90 degrees. An obtuse angle is that big fat angle that is more than 90 degrees, less than 180. So 91 to 179 degrees, obtuse angle. And then a straight angle is equal to 180 degrees or a straight line. Hopefully you're remembering those. Two ones that we need to put in our notes. An adjacent angle, two angles that share a side, they are next to each other. So adjacent means next to each other. Get it down, draw yourself a picture of next door neighbors, and then write down the definition in your notes. Our second definition, vertical angles. Vertical angles are directly across from each other when two lines intersect. They're also congruent to each other. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 3 in this picture, and angle 2 is congruent to angle 4. So pause your video, make sure you get the definition and the fact that they're congruent with the picture in your notes, please. All right. Name the angle at the right, then classify the angle as acute, right, obtuse, or straight. So we're talking about the three different angle ways that we can name this angle. So we always have to go in order when naming an angle. So this is X, Y, Z in order with the vertex being in the middle, or Z, Y, X. You can go this way, Z, then Y, then X. We cannot do X, Z, Y because that vertex has to be in the middle. We can also call it angle 1 by the number inside of the angle, and we can name it by the vertex. Angle Y. Those are all names for this angle right here. It is less than 90 degrees, so we call this an acute angle. So get that in your notes. Don't know if some of you remember that or not. Directions kind of stay the same. Name each angle, then describe what type of an angle it is. So I see that box right away. I'm going to call this a right angle. I can also call this angle 2 because that's the number inside the angle. I can call it angle B because that's the vertex. And if I'm going to use my capital letters, I have to go in order. Angle A, B, C with that vertex being that middle letter, or angle C, B, A. All right, number 2, angle 3, angle S, angle R, S, T, and angle T, S, R. It's also more than 90 degrees, so we call this obtuse. And last one, go ahead and try it by yourself and then reveal the answers if you'd like to. So angle 4, angle M, angle N, M, L, angle L, M, N, and it's also straight. Perfect, 180 degrees. All right, moving on. 2 new vocabulary words, so get the definition down, draw yourself a picture, and make sure that you understand the difference between the two of them. Complementary angles are angles whose sum that add up, so 2 or more angles that add up to be 90 degrees or form that right angle. So angle 1 plus angle 2 is equal to 90 degrees. Supplementary angles are two or more angles whose sum, who add up to equal that 180 degrees. They form a straight line. So angle 3 plus angle 4 is equal to 180 degrees. Moving on, refer to the diagram at the right. Identify each pair as adjacent, vertical, or neither. All right, number 1, angle 2 and angle 5. They are across from each other, so we call them vertical. All right, number 1 is done. On to number 2. What do we got? Angle 4. This is not letting me switch colors. Angle 4 and angle 6. They're not next door to each other. They're not across from each other or opposite of each other, so we're going to call them neither. No fancy words for angle 4 and angle 6. Put 5 in there, and then you could use supplementary. But angle 5 and angle 6, we call those adjacent. Directly next door, they are neighbors. Oops. Adjacent. And then angles 1 and 3. 1 and 3. I use the same color, so hopefully you can see that. They're not vertical. They're not next door neighbors, so we're going to call them neither. All right, moving on. You can use what you learned about vertical and adjacent angles to find the value of a missing measure. So we can do this numerous ways now that we know what complementary and supplementary are. We can equal these to 180 degrees or a straight line, or we can use vertical or adjacent. So it tells us to find x. So 2x plus 2 is going to be equal to 130 degrees because this angle and this angle are congruent. Like I said, you could have done 2x plus 2 plus 50 is equal to 180 degrees, but that seemed not as easy. So we're going to subtract 2. 2x is going to be equal to 128. Divide both sides by 2. And x is going to be equal to 64 degrees. So if x is 64, 64 plus 2 makes this angle, we have to do 64 times 2 before we add 2, sorry. 128 plus 2 equals 130. And 130 plus 50 is 180, which I can guess or check myself with supplementary angles. All right, finding y. 3y minus 10. This angle is congruent to this angle because they are vertical. So 3y minus 10 is equal to 50 degrees. Undoing the minus 10 by adding 10 to both sides. So 3y is going to be equal to 60 degrees. I'm doing multiplication by dividing both sides by 3, and y is going to be equal to 20. So if I put y back in here, 3 times 20 is 60 minus 10 gives me an angle measure of 50, and 50 plus 130 gives me 180 for these two angles, which is a straight line, so that checks my work on that angle. All right, a little less going on in this, just showing us this vertical angle and at vertical angles and asking us to find the value of the figure. So 2x plus 4 is going to be equal to 100 degrees. We're going to subtract 4 from both sides, and 2x is going to be equal to 96 degrees. Divide both sides by 2, and x is going to be equal to 48 degrees. That is just x, not the angle measure, but it asked us to find the value of x, so we're okay there. All right, last example, we've got 2x plus 6 is equal to the angle across from it, with a vertical angle of 80 degrees. To undo, we subtract 6, so 2x is going to be equal to 74. Divide both sides by 2, and x is going to be equal to 37 degrees. So 37 times 2 plus 6 is going to be equal to 80. All right. That is it. Have a good day.